Hi everybody, my name's Rosie, and I'm going to take you through a couple of SAT practice questions. So we're doing practice test number 1, and we're starting with this passage here from The Strangeness of Beauty. How I like to approach this, and everybody's different, but I like to start by having a quick glance at the questions because, it gives you a bit of a blueprint for what kind of things you're going to be looking for. You can see sort of the general gist of what's happening within the passage with question 1. Pattern of the passage in question 2, a couple of sort of definitions of words, pretty basic comprehension questions here. So if we go back up to the beginning, you can skim through, have a look through, and then we'll go to the questions. So the first question is, which choice best describes what happens overall in the passage? The answers in all of the reading comprehension questions are in the text, so all you need to do is find them. So we have 4 options here. We've got one character argues with another character who intrudes on her home. One character receives a surprising request from another character. One character reminisces about choices she's made over the years, and one character criticizes another character for pursuing an unexpected course of action. Let's have a look at what happens. So we've got Akira coming straight to Chi's house. She's very confused about this. She's hanging out with Naomi. We don't directly know who these characters quite are yet. It's kind of, a sense of intrigue and mystery. We get to the crux of the matter when Akira says that I have an opportunity to go to America as dentist for Seattle's Japanese community. And then she says, congratulations, that is an opportunity, I'm sure. And then she says, but how am I involved? So we don't quite know yet, we're working it out. And then on the next page, depending on your response, I may stay in Japan. I've come to ask for Naomi's hand. I'll just highlight that. That is basically the crux of this whole interaction. And then they go on from there. They're talking about sort of how they understand each other, and there's no clear resolution just yet. So if we go over here to the first question, which choice best describes what happens in the passage? A, one character argues with another character who intrudes on her home. Looking at the passage, that doesn't make much sense. They're not arguing. They have a conversation. They say, we have an understanding. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. And then Akira's making his points, trying to get his wife, his future wife. Really, it's not even much of a conversation because once he makes that proposal, he pretty much just leaves. So it's not much of an argument because she doesn't really say anything. B, one character receives a surprising request from another character. Ultimately very true. Akira went to Chi's home to ask for Naomi's hand in marriage. We can mark that down as a definite maybe, but it's still good to look through all of the answers and make sure that we have the most correct answer. C, one character reminisces about choices she has made over the years. This is clearly pointing to Chi as sort of the elder mother figure, and it doesn't really say anything about her life, so we can kind of discount that too. And then the last one is one character criticizes another character for pursuing an unexpected course of action. Again, that's trying to direct you to the Chi and Akira conflict, of which there really is none. So taking away all of that, the answer is B. There we go. We're just going to mark that down. Next. Which choice best describes the developmental pattern of the passage? And for these types of questions, I do like looking at all of the answers first so that I can make an informed decision. So we've got a careful analysis of a traditional practice. What they're trying to point us there to is obviously the idea of the proposal, the going to the parents and the blessing of marriage. A detailed depiction of a meaningful encounter, a definitive response to a series of questions, and a cheerful recounting of an amusing anecdote. Right away, I can see at least 2 things that we can cross off the list there. We can cross off C, a definitive response to a series of questions, because there is no real response. Chi doesn't say anything either way regarding the proposal and goes back inside to talk to Naomi. Yeah, no conclusion has been come to, so we can cross that one off. And a cheerful recounting of an amusing anecdote. There's not a lot of recounting going on here. It's all pretty much happening in real time, and I don't think there's anything really that inherently funny about a proposal unless you're, 5. So we're just going to cross that off too. And then we got the first 2. So let's look at a careful analysis of a traditional practice. In this passage, we hear a lot about tradition and custom. Literally, the first sentence is, Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. I think from the first sentence, we can kind of see that A doesn't really stand up, because if it would be a careful analysis of a traditional practice, Akira wouldn't be doing everything in an untraditional way. The whole first paragraph kind of says, had he followed form, would she have been more receptive? He's not doing things traditionally, so we can cross that off too. Therefore, By process of elimination, I think we can come to the conclusion that the answer is B, but let's have a look. A detailed depiction of a meaningful encounter. I would argue that it is a detailed depiction. It goes into a lot of detail about the night, the house, the atmosphere, and the encounter is definitely meaningful because it could dictate multiple people's lives. For question 3, I love these questions because they directly give you the answer, essentially. They tell you where to look, and it's a very simple, what does this word mean? As used in line 1 and line 65. Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. You can get a sense of the fact that if we're looking at the answers, we've got frankly, confidently, without mediation, and with precision. Those are our options. There is going to be no other, there's no other option, so the answer is one of those 4. And if we look at line 65, please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. I ask directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. Yes, Akira is being frank, but that's not because of the directly, right? He's saying, I ask directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. So what you can insinuate from that is that the reason why he's asking directly is because he's trying to be quick. Because obviously, he needs to know whether Naomi's going to marry him so that he will or will not go to America. He's not confident because he's a little stressed. He's tripping over his words a bit. And he is by no means assuming that she is going to accept the proposal on behalf of Naomi. So confidently, I think we can cross off. Frankly, he's being honest, but that's not the directness of it, right? He's not going up there and, laying down some hard truths. So I think we can cross that off too. Without mediation, if we look at the context, right, he's just gotten this offer and he needs to make a decision quickly. So I would argue that doing these things directly means without mediation. He's going real fast and just trying to get his affairs in order before he has to leave or stay. And then if we look at the last one, with precision, I don't think there's a lot of precision going on here. I think, he shows up not in the middle of the night, but he shows up on an evening, it's raining, it's winter. This was not a carefully planned proposal. And then by process of elimination, the answer is C. Question 4. Which reaction does Akira most fear from Chi? A, she will consider his proposal inappropriate. B, she will mistake his earnestness for immaturity. C, she will consider his unscheduled visit an imposition. Or D, she will underestimate the sincerity of his emotions. This is one of those questions where all the answers kind of make sense. Like they make sense within the context of what the passage is asking, but only one of them is really backed up by evidence from the text. And what's helpful is to go to the next question. And they have a lot of questions like this in the SAT that are kind of grouped together. And the first question is kind of asking the question, if you will. And the second question is which lines or, which section provides evidence for the previous answer. So questions 4 and 5 go together. What I find helpful in these kinds of situations is actually going through the lines and seeing what we can do. Looking at the actual sort of confrontation between the two characters. Depending on your response, I might stay in Japan. I've come to ask for Naomi's hand. This is where we can start looking at it, because everything before that is just build up to this. And the question is about what Akira is going to fear from her, and that's after he's asked the question, if that makes sense. So, once he's asked the question, we know we can start from there. Suddenly, Chi felt the dampness of the night. Does Naomi know anything of your ... ambitions? We have an understanding. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. I ask directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. Either method comes down to the same thing, a matter of parental approval, etc., etc., etc. Eager to make his point, he'd been looking her full in the face. Abruptly, his voice turned gentle. I see I've startled you. My humble apologies. I'll take no more of your evening. My address is on the card if you don't wish to contact me, etc., etc. He bowed and left. Looking at evidence from the text, I would argue, so she will mistake his earnestness for immaturity. There's nothing in the text that points to the fact that he's immature. Like, he's got a really cool job offer, he's looking to get married. There's nothing in there that says that he cannot sort of provide for the life that he's intending to live. So I think we can cross off B. C, she will consider his unscheduled visit an imposition. Well, he's already there. and she's talking to him. So there's really also not a lot in the text that is saying this. Additionally, he doesn't take up that much of her time, right? He gets in, says what he needs to say, and then leaves. So we're just going to mark that off. And then she will underestimate the sincerity of his emotions. There's really nothing to support that. Looking at the conversation that they have, there's no real mention of the sincerity of his emotions. Whereas, in contrast, looking at option A, she will consider his proposal inappropriate. There's a line in here, please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. I would say that's pretty good evidence for the fact that he is worried that the sort of untraditional nature of his proposal is something that she is not going to accept. Therefore, we have our potential answer. There we go. However, this is a really cool way to sort of back up your choice and sort of check your answer almost, is looking at these lines and how they correspond to the answer that you've chosen. Line 33, his voice to refined. His voice was soft, refined. That's the whole quote. It doesn't say anything about really anything. It just describes how his voice is, which it doesn't really point to him fearing a reaction from Chi. So we can, I'm pretty sure, cross that off. Lines 49 to 51. You know how children speak so earnestly, so hurriedly, so endearingly about things that have no importance in an adult's mind. That quote is about how Chi is perceiving Akira and not about what Akira is worried about. So something else we can cross off. Line 63 to 64, please and proposal. This is already looking good because you got the word proposal in it. And lo and behold, it's this passage right here, this quote here. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. Directly a quote from Akira describing what he's worried about and why. All right, I think that looks pretty good, and then we'll just double check line 71 to 72 from Eager to Face. Eager to make his point, he'd been looking her full in the face. I think we have our answer. Next question. In the passage, Akira addresses Chi with A, affection but not genuine love, B, objectivity but not complete impartiality, C, amusement but not mocking disparagement, or D, respect but not utter deference. I think we can cross out B and C almost immediately. B, because there's not really a lot of objectivity in him asking for someone's hand in marriage. There's obviously an emotional component to that, and the way that he addresses her, obviously worried about how she's going to react to it, is inherently devoid of impartiality or objectivity. So we can cross that out there. And C, amusement but not mocking disparagement. There isn't a lot of amusement in what he's saying. He is on a time crunch and he needs to know an answer to something. He's not cracking jokes. He's not trying to find the funny moments in these situations. So we can cross that out too. And then there's affection versus respect. Looking at those two as just individual concepts, ignoring the deference and genuine love, I think we can see that there's clearly more of a lean towards respect than there is affection. This is someone who is worried about traditions, right? And despite the fact that they are breaking a lot of them, is very aware of the customs and traditions in this culture. Hence, the previous questions about why Akira is worried that Chi might reject his proposal on behalf of Naomi. When Akira is talking to Chi, he is not being affectionate because really he doesn't really know this person, but he is, his voice is becoming gentle. He apologizes for startling her. He leaves when she sees that she is startled. My humble apologies, I'll take no more of your evening. My address is on the card. If you don't wish to contact me, I'll reapproach you in 2 weeks' time. Until then, good night. And then he leaves. There is a clear pattern of etiquette there, and it doesn't show affection because, again, he doesn't know her. So I think we can safely say that the answer is D. The main purpose of the first paragraph is to A, describe a culture, B, criticize the tradition, C, question a suggestion, or D, analyze a reaction. Let's look at the first paragraph. What I like to say is when you're reading through these, you do not have to read it super intensely on the first run through, because the whole point of these questions is that they're going to take you through and focus on key passages. So while it's important to read the whole thing and get a lay of the land, you do not need to analyze anything deeply until it comes to that point in the passage. Part of the time management portion of the SAT is being able to isolate the parts of the questions that are significant and be able to discard the rest. So, paragraph 1. Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? Had he followed form, had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between, would she have been more receptive? That's the first paragraph. There's an indent, so it's only those first 4 lines. Let's look back at the options. Describing a culture. I would argue that while they are describing a tradition, that tradition is not emblematic of an entire culture. And so I don't think it's going to be answer A because there's no depth or nuance to that. B, criticize the tradition. I would argue that there's no criticism in this. There's questioning, had he followed form, had he adhered to the customs, would she have been more receptive to his proposal? That's not a criticism. That is just ruminating. So no. These two are surprisingly similar if you really look at it. To question a suggestion or analyze a reaction. Question a suggestion, analyze a reaction. Let's go back to the paragraph. Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? Had he followed form? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between? Would she have been more receptive? To question a suggestion, there has to have been a suggestion. And I guess you could argue that the proposal is the suggestion, but that fundamentally doesn't make sense for the start of the paragraph because the reader doesn't really know what's happening. All we know is that Akira said something, made the suggestion, sure, but then it's all about if he had changed that, would Chi's reaction have been different? And in breaking down that paragraph into the simplest sentence that can come from it, what we can see is that the prose is analyzing how Chi responded to whatever strange thing that we don't know about yet that Akira has done or said. Questioning a suggestion, analyze a reaction, in this context, makes the most sense. Sticking with paragraph 1. In line 2, the word form most nearly means appearance, custom, structure, or nature. Let's have a look. Had he followed form? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between? Appearance, personally, I feel like this doesn't make any sense in the context. Had he followed appearances and asked his mother and father and the go-between, it doesn't fit. So we're gonna cross that out. Custom, this makes sense. We're talking about the custom of proposing in a very specific way. So it's looking good on custom. Structure. Had he followed the structure? I guess you could also say that that technically works had he followed the form of tradition, right? He is breaking all the tradition. The closest thing we have to the word tradition in this instance is the word custom. Structure and nature, well, nature I feel like definitely doesn't apply because we're talking about, a man-made custom, and it does feel like the answer presents itself in that instance. So the answer is B. All right, 2 more questions, and they are linked together. Why does Akira say his meeting with Chi is a matter of urgency? A, he fears that his own parents will disapprove of Naomi. B, he worries that Naomi will reject him and marry someone else. C, he has been offered an attractive job in another country. Or D, he knows that Chi is unaware of his feelings for Naomi. Looking at that, and then looking at the main body of the text, the central reason as to Akira's proposal is because he says, I have an opportunity to go to America as dentist for Seattle's Japanese community. And if the question is, why is this a matter of urgency? It makes a lot of sense, right? He has this job offer. He needs to leave and go to America. However, depending on Naomi's answer, he might stay in Japan. So that is very much a matter of, I need this answer now so that I can choose whether or not to leave the country. So right now, C is looking good. He fears that his own parents will disapprove of Naomi. There's really not a lot in here about his own parents except for had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between. Doesn't give any reason for him having to ask this in an urgent manner. He worries that Naomi will reject him and marry someone else. Again, nothing in the text to prove this, and that is, evidenced by Naomi saying, I mean to have him at the very end. So we've talked about the job, and then he knows that she is unaware of his feelings for Naomi. Again, not something that prompts a matter of urgency. Like, that is very easily something that can be remedied. So the answer is C. And then we've got which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question. Let's go through them. And again, this is a really great way to check your answer and make sure that you feel confident in the one that you've given. Line 39. I don't want to trouble you. Does that seem to invoke a manner of urgency? I don't think it does. I say that all the time in non-urgent manners, so we can cross that out. Lines 39 to 42. Normally, I would approach you more properly, but I've received word of a position. So the quote is, normally I would approach you more properly, but I've received word of a position. I have an opportunity to go to America as dentist for Seattle's Japanese community. This quote keeps coming up because it's very integral to the meaning of the passage. This seems relevant, so we're gonna highlight it for now, and then maybe come back to it later. C, lines 58 to 59. Depending on your response, I may stay in Japan. I've come to ask for Naomi's hand. Kind of makes sense in the context of what we're talking about, so we don't need to rule that out right away. And then lines 72 to 73. I see I've startled you. Doesn't say a lot about anything. So between the two answers that we have, they talk about very similar things. But the question is not, you can't have multiple answers. It's which provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question. So which line is the best evidence that this is a matter of urgency? Normally, I would approach you more properly, but I've received word of a position. I have an opportunity to go to America as dentist for Seattle's Japanese community. Let's look at what we think is important evidence here. Normally, I would approach you more properly. That to me is the key phrase, because that suggests that this is a matter of urgency, right? Normally, all the time in the world, it would not be that important to do this now, but I have been offered this thing. And then the next bit, depending on your response, I may stay in Japan. Helpful, but not the best evidence. The best evidence is B, because it directly gives a reasoning as to why this is urgent. And that's it. That is the first passage done.